Right. So let's get started with the very first topic of our calculation, that is linear equations. Now, before discussing linear equation, let's try to understand the type of equations here. You must have heard about many equations like simultaneous equation, linear equations, equations in one variable, two variable, cubic equation, biquadratic equation, quadratic equation. Our purpose would be to find the solutions of those equations. Fine. So in this video, we'll be discussing that how to deal with linear equation in two variables. But before that, let's try to understand the type of equations here. So if you write 2x plus 3 is equal to 7, this is one of the equations. Sometimes you get an equation like this, x square plus 2x is equal to 9. Sometimes you get x cube plus 4x square plus 3x plus 9 is equal to 4. Now look at this. All of them are equations. Fine. But the difference here is what? Look at the power of this variable. Here it is 1. Here it is 2. And in this one, the maximum power is 3. So this is linear equation. This is quadratic equation. This is a cubic equation. You might get a biquadratic equation here. But before that, let's try to understand few terminologies here. The first one is a constant. Then we have a variable. Then we have a term also. Fine. Now, what does it mean? Expression, then you might get equation or inequality. Now, let's try to understand this constant. So, if I write it like this, 2x plus 3. Fine. What is 3 here? It's a constant because it does not depend on the any value of x or y. This is called constant here. The next one is variable. The unknowns are called variable. I don't know the value of this x. The whole value will depend on this 2x plus 3. It also depends on this variable. This is called variable like A, B, C, X, Y, Z. These are called variables. Then the next term we have here is term. Now, what do you mean by term? This is one of the terms, 3. 2x is the another term. Or if I write it like this, 2x plus 3y plus 4z. Now, if you look at this, this is the first term. This is the second term. This is called third term. And what are x, y, and z here? These are called variables. So, your final answer will depend on the values of these x, y, and z. We also call them solutions of the equation. Fine. Now, what are these 2, 3, and 4? This 2 is called coefficient. This 2 is called coefficient of x. Similarly, this 3 is called coefficient of y. And this 4 is called coefficient of z. Now, these were the terms constant, variable, term, and coefficient. Now, let's look at the next term. We call it expression. If I say 2a plus 3b plus 4c. Now, this is an expression for me. This is not an equation. This is only an expression. And if somebody asks you that what is the value of this expression, you need the values of a, b, and c to give the answer. Fine. Now, let's try to understand the difference between equation and expression. If I say 2a plus 3b plus 4c is equal to 7. Now, this expression will become equation because now they're separated by an equal to sign here. This is left hand side and this one is right hand side. That means equation should have left hand side and right hand side separated with an equal to sign. And it should have some constant like 7 here and terms like 2a, 3b, 4c, and the variables also a, b, and c. These are called variables. So, how many terms are there? 2a, 3b, 4c, 7. These are terms. What are the variables here? A, b, and c. So, what's the necessary condition for an expression to become what equation? It should have left hand side and right hand side with a mix of what? Constants and variables. Now, what is inequality? Inequality. If I write it like this, 2x plus 3y greater than 7. Or the simple one would be what? X plus 4 is greater than 8. Now, whenever you change the side of a term, when 4 goes on that side, you get x greater than 8 minus 4, which is equal to 4. So here you don't get the exact value, you get a range here. And whenever you don't get the exact value, you get multiple values or range of the values. We call it inequality. So that's the basic difference between expression, equations, and inequalities. Fine. Let's move on to the next slide. How do we represent the equation or expression on a graph? Look at this. 2x minus 4 is an expression. Now, when you put y equal to 2x minus 4, this becomes an equation. This becomes an equation. Now, this is called linear equation. If the value power, if the highest power of any variable is 1 in the given equation, we call it linear equation. Now, value of y is, power of y is 1, x is also 1. The highest power is 1. That's why this becomes a linear equation. Instead of that, if I give you an equation like this, x square plus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. Now, what's the highest power? It's 2 here. So, this is not a linear equation. We call it a quadratic equation. We'll discuss it later on. Now, let's focus on this equation. Y is equal to 2x minus 4. Now, what are the variables here? X and y. For every value of x, you get a different value of y here. Yes or no? Now, when you put x equal to 0, what do you get? When you put x equal to 0, you get 2 into 0 minus 4. You get y equal to minus 4. When you put x equal to 2, 2 into 2 is 4. 4 minus 4 will give you 0. So y becomes 0. So you can have multiple values here. And if you try to plot it on a graph paper, let's see what happens. This is horizontal line is called x-axis. And this vertical line is called y-axis. The left hand side of the x-axis will be positive, while the left hand side will be negative, while the right hand side will be positive. Similarly, this top part will be positive for y-axis and this will be negative. Fine. Now what's given here? We want to plot the graph here. When you put x equal to 2 here, you get y equal to 0. So this would be the first point. When you put x equal to 0, you get y equal to minus 4. This is the second point. Sorry, the first point was what? When you put y equal to 0, this becomes 0 is equal to 2x minus 4. That means x becomes how much? 2. And when you put x equal to 0, you get the value of y. 2 into 0 minus 4, you get minus 4 here. So this was the first point. This is the second point. You can have some more points here. Like when you put x equal to 1 here, what do you get? Y is equal to 2 into 1 minus 4. You get y equal to minus 2. So when x is 1, y becomes minus 2. This would be the third point. If you try to join these 3 points, something like this, you get a straight line. Let's see it here. You get a straight line here. What does it mean? Every linear equation is going to give you a straight line here. Yes or no? Only one equation was there. I can have multiple points here. Infinite points will satisfy this particular line. That's why this y is equal to 2x minus 4 will have how many solutions? It will have infinite solutions. I hope this is clear to everyone. Look at the graph here. These are the points. When you try to locate these points on a graph paper, you get this straight line. This is a straight line. Now, if I ask you what are the solutions of this particular equation, your answer will be infinite solutions because there are many points which are going to satisfy this equation. There are infinite points lying on this line. This is what where x is greater than 2, this part, because this lies after 2. And for this part, x is less than 2, the lower part. So what is the output? What is the value of y when x is greater than 2? This is the portion which represents the values of y when x is greater than 2. And when x is less than 2, this is the portion of y which will represent all the values when x is less than. And for equal to 2, This is the value of y. So remember that on this line, the y coordinate is always 0. And on vertical line, x coordinate will be 0. So here the value of x is 0, but y is how much? Minus 4. Now let's take an example of equation in one variable. 4x plus 6. Fine. This is the equation in one variable. So if I ask you what is the value of this one when we put x equal to 1, we'll say 4 into 1 plus 6. That is equal to 10. If I ask you what is the value when x is equal to 2, we'll say 4 into 2 plus 6. That is 14. But if I ask you what's the solution of this equation, your answer will be no solution. Because the number of variables is x and it's not an equation right now. It's an expression. It's an expression. If you convert this in terms of equation, it will become 4x plus 6 is equal to 3x plus 10. And now I can solve this equation. When 3x comes on this side, it will become 4x minus 3x. Now 4x minus 3x is equal to 10 minus 6. You get x here and 10 minus 6 is how much? 4. So you get only one solution. You get only one solution. What does it mean? If you get one equation and one variable, you'll always get a unique answer. Exactly one answer. You'll obtain exactly one answer. Let's look at one more example. What if you get two variables and two equations? 2x plus 3y. 2x plus 3y. Then the next one is this is what? One equation and two variables. Now, if I ask you, what are the solutions of this equation? What are the solutions of this equation? Now, if the number of equations are less than number of variables, let's see what will happen. I'll put x equal to 0 here. When you put x equal to 0 here, this whole term will become 0. You get 3y equal to 5. That means y is equal to minus 5 by 3. If you put one more value, when you put x equal to 1 here, this becomes 2. 2 goes on that side. 5 minus 2 is 3. 3y is equal to 3. That means y is equal to how much? 1. You get y equal to 1 here. So for every value of x, you get one value of y here. So all these are called solutions of the equations. You can see the table here. We used to do this in the class 8th or ninth in our school days. What are the number of solutions? Infinite solutions. We've already seen that in the previous slide where I was drawing the graph of a particular equation. I got a straight line here. And I told you that all the points on this line will satisfy the particular equation. That's why the number of solutions will become infinite here. So, if there are n variables, we need at least n independent equations to find a unique solution. Otherwise, you will never get a unique solution. Fine. Now let's see what happens here. Linear equation in two variables. Equations in two variables, that means you're going to get more than one equation here. This is my first equation. 2x plus 3y equal to 7. What's the next one? 3x plus 5y equal to 11. Now, if you look at these two equations, two equations and two variables, can we solve them? School days ka yaad karo. We used to solve these equations using some methods. The first one was called substitution. दूसरा method क्या होता था? It was elimination. And there are two more methods. Third one was graphical method, if you remember. Or fourth होता था cross multiplication. Let's see what happens if you try to solve these equations using substitution method. Now, these are the two simple equations. 2x plus 3y equal to 7 and 3x plus 5y equal to 11. Now, what I'll do, I'll try to substitute the value of one of the variables in terms of other. Write one variable in terms of another. Now, if you look at this first equation, 2x plus 3y equal to 7. So, what's the value of x? X becomes 7 minus 3y by 2. What's the next step? I'll use this value of x and substitute in the second equation, which is 3x plus 5y equal to 11. Now, let's see what happens here. 3 into x. What was the value of x? 7 minus 3y by 2 plus 5y equal to 11. Now you're left with only one equation in one variable. That means it can be solved. एक equation होगा और एक variable होगा. So we can easily solve it. Now look at this. After solving this, I get y equal to 1. Now what about the value of x? अगर y का value 1 आया, what we can do? We can put it here. When you put y equal to 1 here, this term will become 3. 7 minus 3 is 4. And 4 by 2 will give you how much? It's 2. Yes or no? So you get x equal to 2 here. So what is the solution of these given set of equations? We'll say x equal to 2 and y equal to 1. We're able to get the unique answer. What does it mean? If the number of variables are equal to number of independent equations, you'll definitely get what? The solution of the equation. Sometimes, now these equations must be independent. Sometimes you might get what? Infinite solutions. Sometimes you'll get no solution. Those will be the cases. We'll discuss it later on, but look at the first method. This is called substitution method. दूसरा मेथड क्या होता था? Elimination. The name itself suggests elimination. What does it mean? You'll have to eliminate one of the variables. One of the variables. Let's see what happens here. 2x plus 3y equal to 7. This was the equation. 3x plus 5y is the another equation. The objective is to eliminate either x or y. And you'll be able to eliminate them if these terms will become equal. If these terms will become equal, that means either I'll make the terms, these two terms equal or these two terms equal. It's up to you. Now look at the first equation. 2x plus 3y is equal to 7. If you multiply the first equation by 3 and second by 2, why I am multiplying these numbers by 3 and 2? Because when you multiply 3 here, this term will become 6x. And when you multiply 2 here, this term will also become 6x. So what's the LCM of 2 and 3? It's 6. That's why I'll try to make both the coefficient of x equal to 6 here. Now make the coefficient of variables same in both the equation. Okay. So effectively, this equation will become 6x plus 9y equal to 21. And this will become 6x plus 10y equal to 22. Now what's the next step? School days में करते थे ना? इन दोनों equations को अगर ध्यान से देखें, I can see that these two terms have become equal. अगर ये दोनों terms equal हो गए हैं, so after subtracting equation number 2 from equation number 1, what do I get? 6x minus 6x. You need to change the sign. This becomes minus, and this will also become minus. 6x minus 6x will be 0. 9y minus 10y will give you minus 1 is equal to 21 minus 22 will give you minus 1. So effectively, y would be equal to how much? 1. Now, since we have got the value of y, now we need to find the value of x. The approach will remain same. You put y equal to 1 in any of these two equations to get the value of x. Now look at this. 2x plus 3 into y. So 2x plus 3 into y. The value of y is 1 is equal to 7. From here, you'll get the value of x. Yes or no? So this is how you can solve what? Two equations and two variables using the elimination method.